Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I look at the worst baseball card designs of 1995. The list that I put together is about 26, 27 card designs, and so by doing that, I decided that 8 cards was about the right number of cards to look at for this list. Over in football, I believe it was 10, but that was because I had over 30 designs. Here I figured 8 was about right. And that meant that I had to make there were 2 cards that I wanted to put onto this list. One being Select Certified, which I think is better in baseball than it is in football. And the other was Finest, which I definitely do not think was better in baseball. I think it was much better in football. But both of those I thought were a bit extraneous, and so I'm not going to include them here on the list. But do note that they're just on the outside of being discussed as one of the worst cards. But that means that I have a list of the 5 worst, and then I have 3 honorable mentions. The first of which is Pinnacle. Now, Pinnacle, I hate to put on this list because I like looking at the cards, and that's because they did great image selection. These images come through in such a wonderful way, and whenever I look at the card, that's what I'm looking at. I don't look at the design at the bottom, but that's actually a great thing because the design at the bottom is really quite lousy. Now, in 1994, they had, for their football design, they had this big pyramid that was obnoxious, took over the card, and ruined some really good images. In 1995, they basically took that and brought it over to their baseball market, where here they have a curved baseball seam version of it that is a lot better. But it's a lot better because there's more of an intricacy to it, and it doesn't really stand out. That's kind of the key. It kind of fades into the not the background, but it just kind of disappears, and it almost elevates the image in a way. Now, when I do look at it, I really don't like it, but the beauty of this is that somehow they designed it in a way so that it doesn't get in the way of the card. The problem that it has is that it doesn't fit with the rectangular card, it doesn't fit with the image. The whole theme at the bottom is just a weird thing that is almost like it's stuck onto the card. There's no reason for it to be on here. So the reason that I have it here as one of the honorable mentions, and that I actually have it on this list, is because I can't go with just the image. And the card itself, when I actually look at the card, it really does disappoint me, which is too bad. The second honorable mention is same company. I'm going over to Zenith. And with Zenith, this is one that always catches me off guard because I've always had a great respect for the 95 Zenith cards, and I've always remembered how great they are. Until I look at them, and then I remember why I don't bother to look at the cards, because look, they have everything that they need. They have a gorgeous dark black lacquered surface. Oh, it looks wonderful. And then they have a top-down view of an Egyptian pyramid in gold blocks with a wonderful gold hue coming through in a really interesting way. And then they have a shaded side that is, well, actually, now that I'm looking at the baseball cards, I'm realizing that that shaded side is really a baseball diamond, which makes a lot more sense here, not at all with football, but it explains why they did that weird design on it. And I love the text for the player's name. I love the floating Zenith logo in the black. Look, I love all the things on this card. The problem is they weren't put together well. I mean, okay, the logo is great, and the text I have no complaints about. But the pyramid, it's a great idea, but they didn't quite resolve it in a way that made any sense at all. So instead, there's this weird transition to the black area up above, which doesn't make... I really don't know what they were going with. The thing is, this is a card where I always love what a great design it has, as long as I'm not looking at it. When I look at it, I give it props, but I don't want to continue looking at the card. It has a little bit more of an annoyance to it than a pleasurable spirit. So it's I really want to love the card. It's just there's something that's missing, and at some point I may sit down and try to do a slight redesign to one of these and see if I can figure out how to improve it. I don't know, but at any rate, It's, they're so close on it. For my third honorable mention, I have flare. Now, the 95 design shows exactly what the problem with flare is, which is that in 1993 they came up with a brilliant idea and they built a wonderful jewel box set. A set where they put just the right amount of craftsmanship into it to make sure that the cards all looked gorgeous, but they weren't designed into a corner. 1994, however, was more of a rinse and repeat type of a set where they just kind of cranked it out. Some of the cards turned out well, most of them did not, but it was kind of forgettable because there was nothing about the 1994 card that was distinct. 1995, they tried to remedy that by having a crystalline background around the player, which is actually quite interesting. It's almost like they looked at playoff and went, well, what can we do with that to make it distinct for us? And I like the way that it works when you explore the card. And if you see the silver next to the gold, oh man, that really does look cool. But the problem is this is a card you're never going to notice in a display case ever, because nothing about the card is at all distinct. It just kind of blends together in one big field. And that's the issue that it has, which is that the 1993, all the cards were distinct. 1994, some of the cards were distinct, but you could kind of see what was going on. In 1995, it was like they made all the cards look exactly the same way. And that's unfortunate. So it's a card I really want to like, but I just really, really can't like it. But for the top 5, the number 1 card, easy. Number 2 and number 3, interchangeable. Number 4 and number 5, I want to swap them. In fact, 5, I want to move down to 3 or 2, but I can't. And that's Leaf Limited. Leaf Limited is a really good insert set. Not a great insert set, but a really good one. As far as an actual set, it's too much, way too much. The holofoil, too much. The color, too much. The design theme, too much. On the plus side, it all does a great job of silhouetting the player. The player is very strong and very distinct on these cards. Now granted, I look at this card and I go, well, it's kind of like looking at the 1992 and 1993 Pacific Prism cards. It has that kind of a quality to it. This is a little bit better than the Prism cards, but look, it's been a couple of years, it had better be. But that's the issue that this card has, which is that the card is way, way too much. And it does not look good on card pages. That's unfortunate. Except when you put enough of them together, the players do start to kind of stand out like silhouettes on the page, but still, it doesn't have any aesthetic strength as a card set. But as an individual card, I have to give it begrudging credit, and I don't know why, because this is a card I keep trying to move closer to number 1, but like a magnet, it keeps popping back to 5, and I can't move it off of here, and I'm not sure why. It's going to continue to bug me, so that's where I have it here at number 5. At number 4, I have Studio, and the 95 Donruss Studio card is, well, this is a good insert as well. Although in this case it never was an insert, this is a card with a brilliant concept. It's a credit card. And with the platinum parallel, it literally is. It has the rounded edges, it has the relief on it, it has the stock. It's actually made of the right type of plastic. And so for those cards, it's brilliant. And having a parallel that's a credit card version of another card is great. The problem is the card it's a parallel of is also kind of a credit card, except it has the squared corners, it has a thin card stock, it doesn't have the relief on it. This is supposed to be a normal card, but you can't see the player, you can't read anything on it. The hologram on it gets kind of in the way of the card, or the player. On the back, you're wondering if it even is a card. The only thing I like about this card is the signature on the back, which I think is really cool that all these cards have it. But this is a 200 card set of these. I mean, there's nothing to look at. That's the problem with this card. I wish they did a 200 card set that was sort of normal, and then they had a gold parallel with the squared corners. Sure, knock yourself out. And then the platinum version with the credit card. So basically just take the 200 regular cards and change those and leave the others the same. That, I think, would have been a rousing success. Tragically, that's not what happened. And so this is a card where every time I look at it, I go, oh, what a great idea. And that's as far as I can take it. Past that, it's a disappointment of a card. It really is. So I hate to have this at number 4. I'd like to like it more. I want to like it more. I can't like it more, so this is what we're stuck with. So that's number 4. Now we move on to number 3. And for number 3, I have Topps D3. This is a card that, to be fair, I could easily pull all the way out to the honorable mentions, because when you look at the front, it's not a bad card. It's actually, it's the best looking card of just about all these. Certainly of the 5 worst, because the card is a lenticular card, and they didn't want to do what Sportflix did. They wanted this to be more subtle and to have more of an eerie 3D effect. And on a few cards, they kind of have pulled that off, but most of them are pretty amateurish. So the 3D effect just doesn't really come through. But also, there's no design on this card, and you can't really read the player name, and so that means that this is a card where, who is it? Who knows? And that's the real problem this card has. Now, if these were checklists, and we didn't care who the player was, we'd go, oh, these are such cool baseball cards. And then it would easily be in the honorable mentions, if not moving out of this list in its entirety. But that's not what it is. This is a player of a card of a player, whoever it is. It's probably best to read the back to find out who in the world it's supposed to be. There's nothing memorable about the card. It's an effect that they tried to use and they failed at. And so to me, whenever I look at this card, all I see is failure. I see a card that doesn't do anything that I need it to do. I wish it did something, anything, but it didn't. So I have it at number 3, but I have it at number 3 because aesthetically, it's got to be the best looking of all these cards, aside from Pinnacle and maybe Zenith. Number 2 actually has great images, probably pretty much right alongside Pinnacle, but that's Fleer Ultra. And Ultra was doing a really, really, really good job with images. I mean, really good job. And that's something I like about these cards, is that the images are really strong. The problem is the design feature on this card, even more so than with D3, you can't see it. I mean, okay, there are a few where it has red foil, and you can definitely read that, but that's about it. This is a card where they wanted to solve the problem that they were about to create in football, where they had too much gold foil. Here, they toned it down. They have softer colors on this card. And that's really the problem, because the softer colored foil there's nothing distinct about it. It's difficult to read what's on it. If it was a bolder foil, like with the red cards, I mean, in fact, they could have done all blue and all red for the 2 leagues, as opposed to having 2 different colors per team, that's annoying enough as it is. But had they used a bold foil, you could actually read the intricacy down below, in which case they wouldn't have had the too much foil problem of football. They would have had the right balance on these cards. Not necessarily a great design, but at least it would have worked. Instead, it kind of holds it back, because I look at the image, and then when I go to look at the card, I've got to try to find the card, and then it's a disappointment when I eventually find it. And the 2 colors per team is really annoying to me, because it lacks the continuity that I would like to otherwise see in this set. So, I mean, the images are great. They really are. The rest of the card is just such a disappointment. But disappointment is exactly the word I need to use heading into number 1, which is unquestionably Fleer. In fact, Fleer is legendary. Their 1995 set is legendary for being just one of the worst card designs ever. Which also begs the question, which one? Because they did 6 different designs for baseball. Now, I have to admit, 3 of the designs are okay. In fact, one of those almost would work for a set. It would certainly work for an insert set. But these 3, at least you can see the player. He is strong. The card is clear enough, even though you can't really read the different text on it. So it is passable enough. I look at these and go, okay, all right, well, they did that. But the other three, I mean, just, oh, wow, that is bad. In fact, when you look at the Expos card, I think that is the worst of all these three. But all three of these, I mean, any one of these is a failure of a card. You can't read anything, you can't see anything, including the player. At least allow us to see the player. So these cards, it's amazing how many of the designs, literally half of the designs, are all the worst design in 1995 for baseball. And they're going to make a pretty strong run at worst design period across all four sports, which is going to come up in a couple of weeks. I still have both hockey and basketball to do, so I'll do those, and then I'll get to do a look at all of the worst card designs period. And at some point, I'm going to do a look at the worst designs and best designs just of Fleer for these four sets. That won't be the case today, but it is pretty comfortably the worst design for baseball in 1995. So, there's that. I will have the poll up tomorrow, so definitely check out that and vote for which design you think is the worst. Also, do subscribe if you haven't done so. And I guess that's about it. So thank you very much for watching.